Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yud in Avodah Zarah. We learn for Chanukah based on Surah Matzah Shivya. Let's quickly look at the mission again that we saw yesterday. We'll start from the two dots about 8 lines down on the page, but let's quickly see the mission to remember what we're dealing with. You can't spell the following things to a goy because he's going to use that in his service to the temple, to his temple. It's trabulin, which we defined yesterday as being some sort of fruits, cedar fruits. Beno shuach, which we'll see today, petutros, we'll see that today, levona, frankincense. Tanagov, a white rooster. We're going to talk about that a lot. Rav Yehuda says, so the Tanakhama says clearly here that you cannot sell a white rooster under any circumstances, apparently, to an Avodah Zarah. But we'll see if that's really 100%. Rav Yehuda Omer, Mutalim kol tanagov and banat. If you're selling a bunch of chickens, you could sell them a white rooster among them too, because then he's not buying it for Avodah Zarah. He's buying it because he's a chicken farmer or whatever. He's looking at to cook. Let's say you want to sell all you have is a tarnagol oven and he wants to buy it. If you cut off the finger of the chicken or whatever it is, cut off a piece of one of his limbs, then it's okay, because then the they don't sacrifice an animal that's missing a limb to their idols. Anything else? Stam mutter. If he didn't mention Avodah Zarah, you're allowed to sell to him. If he says it's for Avodah Zarah, it's asr. Isn't that obvious? We'll see. Rav Meir Omer af degel tav, even a good palm tree. The chatzah, we'll see what that is. The niklav asr lim can't sell those things either to our vikacham because they're going to use it for Avodah Zarah. So says the Gemara in Daf Yud 8 lines down on the page at the 2 dots. Beno shuach. What can you not sell him? What are those beno shuach that you may not sell him? White figs. Don't sell him white figs. Now we're going to qualify that in a second. Upetutros, the Mishnah said, don't sell him istrabon, which we said are cedar fruit, and we said don't sell him white figs. Upetutros, Amarabba bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan, bipututros shanu. Putros is not another species of fruits, vegetables, animals, whatever. You can't sell them, but rather it means biputros. Putros means in their stems. So all the things that we talked about, like say the cedar fruit or the white figs, don't sell them with their stems. If you sell them with the stems, then they hang them up by the stem to the Avodah Zarah. That's their way of decorating Zarah. That you shouldn't do. But if it's without a stem, then you could, because then they don't use it for Avodah Zarah. Then they're just buying it to eat. Levona, don't sell them frankincense. Levona zaka, pure frankincense. That's what they use for Avodah Zarah. If it's apparently tainted frankincense, or it's not 100% pure, it's some sort of a combination of that and something else, some sort of a mixture, then you're allowed to. Tana, umikulin mochlan chavila. However, all these things, if you sell them a whole bundle of the items, then it's okay, because then it's clear not for the Avodah Zarah. How much is a chavila? It's not less than 300, the weight of 300 coins, 300 mana, 300 dinars. And it's like a mana is like 100 dinars, so 3 is 300 dinars. The weight, if it's got the weight of 300 dinars, then that's considered. You're selling a whole bunch. He's buying it in bulk, and he's not using it for Avodah Zarah. Says the Gemara, why aren't you concerned that maybe he's buying them in bulk in order to sell them to other of the Avodah Zarah, right? Umakatre, and they will burn them to the Avodah Zarah, meaning they will sacrifice them in Avodah Zarah, like you burn incense or burn something in Avodah Zarah. Amar Abaya, listen to this. Alifnei mefkadinan. We are commanded. Lifnei v'chosik mechshol. What are the Tariq mitzvahs is? Don't put a stumbling block in front of a person who's blind. What does that mean? It doesn't mean literally only don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person that they'll trip on, but it means don't cause somebody to do an aveira, right? We had that before. What's the reason why you shouldn't do these things, do business with the Avodah Zarah? We had it back on, I think it was Daf Vav, that we said, Iboilu, on Daf Vav, we said, Mishum harvacha udo mishum lifnei v'sat michshol is the reason why you shouldn't do business with them, because of the profits that they will. The Rebbe Chazal, he'll go thank his God for that. and you're over on Lo Yisham Al Picha, you caused him to say thank his idol, or is it a guy, one of the Zayin mitzvahs beninoch is avodah zarah. So if you're helping him to do avodah zarah, you're causing the avodah zarah l'fnei. So he says over here, here's the issue. If you sell him, let's say, a stem of a cedar fruit, or the stem of a stem with a cedar fruit, or a white fig with its stem, or pure frankincense, you're causing him to do avodah zarah. So you're over l'fnei iver. So on lifnei mafkinin, we're commanded on lifnei to lifnei lo mafkininan. We don't have to be worried that he's going to take this and cause somebody else to do avodah zarah. Okay, so you understand what I'm saying?
Middleman.
Right, he's a middleman, right? He's a middleman. So you don't have to worry about that because he's a goy, and he has no mitzvah lifnei iver. You have a mitzvah lifnei iver. The Jew has a mitzvah lifnei iver. He doesn't have the target mitzvah. He only has zayin mitzvah beninoch. So if you help him to do avodah zarah, that's one of the problems over here. That's the main one of the issues we're dealing in this parak. Don't cause him to do avodah zarah, to go worship his idol. And if you do that, you're over in lifnei iver. We said lifnei iver because of profit. The Gemara didn't really resolve it. It could be both. So he says like this. So meaning we're not obligated to prevent him from being over on lifnei iver. And if he's not going to do the avodah zarah because he's buying in bulk and he's going to sell it to other Clydes and whatever and Kirks and other people who are other goyim, it's not our problem. And he doesn't have a problem of selling it to somebody else, right? Because he has a problem of avodah zarah, but not a problem of lifnei iver. He doesn't have that problem. Okay, so let's say he was going to sell it. You say we have only an issur of lifnei iver, not lifnei. Let's say you're going to sell it to a Jew who's going to sell it then to a goy. That would be a problem because the Jew that you're selling to, the middleman, he has a mitzvah. He has an issur of lifnei iver, so you're causing him to do the aveira of lifnei iver. See, a Jew has a so that would be a problem. Or possibly Mefarshim say the Rush goes into this, that maybe if you sell it to a guy who could possibly selling it to a Jew, that indirect thing could also be a problem. But certainly, if you're selling it to a guy who's going to sell it to a guy, that's not a problem. But if you're selling it to a Jew who's going to sell it to a guy, say you don't want to deal with a guy. Let's say I'll deal with it. I'm not going to do it, so I'll sell it to a Jew who's going to sell it to a guy. Then you're causing him to be over. So you're lifnei iver. You're causing the Jew to be over in lifnei iver. That's a problem. But if it's a guy to a guy, then it's not a problem. Lifnei mefkin. We're commanding on lifnei, but al lifnei lo mefkinim. So the Mishnah seemed to say that it just said pretty simply straight out that you cannot sell a white rooster to a guy. Why? Because he's going to use it. That's what they use for avodah zarah. They don't use black ones and red ones and yellow ones, but white roosters. They use that for worship to their avodah zarah. They slaughter them, whatever they do, right? They use them in their worship. So it's mashma from the Mishnah that you can't do that at all, right? Rabbi Yehuda said you're allowed to sell them one tanago among many. If it's a whole bunch, you're selling them, then it's okay. But if it's by itself, you can't unless you cut off a finger. Okay. The tanago Lavan. Rav Yonah, about halfway down on the page at the two dots. Rav Yonah Rav Zera. Rav Zvid. So according to the first lashon, Rav Yonah said it, name Rav Zera said it, name Rav Zvid. Deacon Amasa, some say Rav Yonah Rav Zera. Rav Zera said it, not in the name of Zvid. Tanago Lemi. Let's say the guy just says, I'm looking to buy a rooster. Anybody got one here? Tanago Lemi. Mutter limko lim tanago. You're allowed to sell him a tanago lavan, even though we say same day in the Mishnah that everybody says you can't sell him a white one, right? Even Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to sell one in a bunch, but by itself you can't sell it. Here Rav Zera says if the guy's asking just for any rooster, you could sell him a white one, because if he didn't specify a white one, then he's probably not using it for avodah zarah. So tanago lemi, if he says targo lavan lemi, let's say he says, anybody got a white one? Got a white one? Then also lim kol tanago lavan. You can't sell him one. Okay. So here Rav Zera seems to be more makel than the Mishnah. The Mishnah said you can't sell him a white one. Rabbi Yehuda said you could sell him a white one if it's one among many, but by itself it's also mashma. You can't sell him a white one under any circumstances. Here Rav Zera says if he just asked for a rooster, you could sell him a white one. Now we're going to ask a kasha from our Mishnah on Rav Zera. Tanan, Rabbi Yehuda says, you could sell him a white one if you're selling him a whole bunch. What are the circumstances when you're selling him a white one among a bunch? Who's got a white one? Who's got a white one? I'm looking for a white one. So I feel bad. Namilo. How could you sell him a white one among others? He's obviously looking for a white one. So it's obviously for Avodah Zarah. So Rav Yehuda wouldn't be matter that. Elalav must be the Komer Tanagol. Must be where he said, who's got a Tanagol? The guy's looking around here. Let's call him Kirk. Well, I don't know why. Clyde, Kirk, whatever. Some guy's your name, right? Madison. Some give you guy have these kind of names, right? Tanagol Lami. Who's got a Tanagol? Vafilu Hachi, right? And as when our Mishnah said that what's the circumstance? Rav Yehuda says it's okay in a bunch. Afilu Hachi, Rav Yehuda bein a Tanagol and only if you sell him a white one among many, you're allowed to. B'fnei atzmalo, it's mashma that everybody agrees. Even Rav Yehuda, who says you could sell him one among many, but by itself you can't. Even if he just said Tanagol, don't sell him a white one. So how could Rav Zera say that if a guy said what? Tarnagol lava, if a guy asked for a Tarnagol stam, you could sell him a white one. From Mishra's mashma, that nobody says you could sell him a white one by itself. No, the Mishnah is speaking about where he asked for several. Could go into Omer Zev Zeh. Rashi says it's like he said, I want a white one, a black one, and a red one. Right? A white one, black one. Take a look at Rashi, a little bit above. Hachab Mayaskina, and you see it's a Hey Beit Ayin. Hachab Mayaskina, the Omer Zev Zeh, about halfway down on the page. Masisin to Rabbi Yehuda b'fnei atzmo lo. Where Rabbi Yehuda says by itself you can't. Could go into Mikara. Here's what happened. The Mishnah speaking about where he said originally, I want a white one, a black one, and a red one. Love him v'shachava adam. Hilkach. Love on the Rabbi Yehuda b'fnei atzmo also you can't sell it by itself. Why? Because keeping the Mikara Itkar. Because since he originally said a white one, now he's taking a white one. V'azole and he's going Mikar not Mikavan Lovin. Maybe he figures. He always wanted a white one because that's what he wants to use for a zar. He figures, I'll fool the Jew. The other who, because he knows the Isha love it. If he asks, if he tells the Jew, I want a white one, the Jew not going to sell him a white one because he knows for Avodah Zarah, Lo Zavinle, Yisrael. But if he takes all three, he says, I want a white one, a red one, and a black one. Then Rabbi Yehuda says that's okay because he's not looking for Avodah Zarah. He asks for all three. If he only wants the white one at the end, no, that's no good. Then since the black one's not for Avodah Zarah, for Rabbanan say no. Why? And since he's asking for a white one, he's obviously just trying to fool it. He says, "I'll have a white one, a red one, and a black one." He really wants the white one for Avodah Zarah. So Rabbanan say you can't do that. Here's the point. But Miu to answer Rav Zera. Tarnagol stama. If he just says, give me any rooster. You got any roosters? Yeah, I'll take any one you have. Any rooster. And you give him a white one, then that would be okay. Tarnagol stama, bein Rabbi Yehuda, bein Rabbanan, mutilam kol Tarnagol love and Rav Zera. So Rav Zera is right. No, Rav Zera is not going, we're trying to answer, Rav Zera is not going into Mishnah. The Mishnah is speaking about where he specified, when he says, a one among many is okay. What are the circumstances? If he asks for a white one, so surely if he asks for a white one, you can't give him a white one among many. And if he didn't ask for a white one, right? If he didn't ask for a white one, why give him? Just like why give him a white one, right? So you shouldn't do it. El the komer tanagol me says, let's give me a tanagol. And even though apparently he says, Rabbi Yehuda says you can only sell him one among many, Tanakam says you can't sell him. Or Tanakam says you can't sell him one at all. In other words, mashma or any circumstance, you can't give him a white one, according to the Chachamim, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can only give him a white one among many. But by itself, it's mashma. You can never give. That was the kasha on Rav Zera. It's mashma. You can never sell him a white one by itself, no matter what he said. You can't give him a white one by itself. Says more no. The Mishnah is speaking about where he asked for several, a white, a red, and a black, and that's the machlokas. The Rabbanan say if he asked for a white, a red, and black, since he asked for a white one, he's trying to fool you. Just added on the red and the black to try to fool you, but he really wants it for Avodah Zarah. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says if he only takes the white one, that would be a problem. But everybody agrees that if he asks Stam for a rooster. I want a rooster. You can sell him a white one. He didn't ask for a white one. That would be okay. That's how Rav Zera will understand the Mishnah. Tanyam Yachu, you see it in the Mishnah in this Bryce also. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Amosai, when is it also B'man Tanagol Zeh Lovan? So I want a white one. I want this white one. Avalim Omer Zev, if you want different colors, right? Then mutter. Va'afilu Omer Tanagol Zeh. Even if he said, I want this one, right? I want this one, this white one. If he's clearly making a party, he's making a feast for his family, for his son, or a white one was known for its medicinal value, and he had somebody sick in his house, and he wanted a white rooster, right? Made a white rooster. Maybe he was trying to figure out what time when the Bosham gets angry, that one split second that he wanted that. I want to check it for that. I doubt it, but if he was making a party of some sort, or he had somebody sick in his house and he wanted a white, so then it's mutter because he's clearly not using for avodah zarah. But Tanan, we learn. What do you mean? If he's making a party, we learned this before. If a man's making a party, a wedding feast for his son. Remember the avodah zarah. If it's their holiday, you can't sell it to them on their holiday for sure. You can't do business with them. And according to the first mission of the Masechet, even 3 days before. According to Bishmal, even 3 days afterwards. We had different opinions here. But if a guy's making it a private feast, it's only usher that day and that person, but it's still usher. How could you say that? Okay, we came out, we said, look, only if he said, I want this white one. He said this white one, then you can't sell him a white one. You could sell him a white one with a red and a black, according to Rav Yehuda. But if he said this one, I wanted several different ones, then you're allowed to have lemar zeh. You're allowed to sell him one among many. And even if he said Tarnagol Zeh, if he's making a party, it's okay. What do you mean? We learned even if it's making a personal party, you can't do business with him that day. You can't. Rav Yisrael bar Rav Misharsha b'tavzig. It's speaking about where he made a picnic. It wasn't a wedding feast. The Mishnah there talked about before. He makes a wedding feast for his son, and you sell him some sort of an implement that he could use for avodah zarah, whether it's a white rooster or something else. That's a problem because he's going to thank his God for it. But if he's not making a picnic, they're getting together for an end of school year picnic or something, then it's okay. Interesting. Rashi in the last line on the page. Look at the last line on the page on the Rashi. V'korin looks a little bit like campfire to me. I don't know. Campfire. I don't know what that word is, but some sort of a party. It's not a chuppah. It's not a chuppah. El Mishnah Shomri is like a friendly get together, a party that the kids do together. According kamfresh, whatever. It's not so important that he's going to give worship as avodah zarah. Okay, but Rav Zera still maintains that idea that if you ask for a tarnagol, any rooster, and you could sell him a white one, you just can't sell him a white one if he asks for it. Tanan, and everybody would agree with that. Everybody would agree with that. The issue only is if he asks for a white one and you sell him only one white one, that would be a problem. That would be a problem. Okay, Tanan, what about another part of my mission? The end of the mission said, all the other items, any other item, if you want to sell to a guy, it's mutter to sell him. Upirushan usher. But if he says specifically, he's specific and he details it and he said, okay, I want it for avodah zarah, then it would be a problem. Now, my stam, what do we mean by stam and pirushin? Listen, I want white wheat. Now, wheat is not normally used in the avodah zarah worship, but let's say he said, I would like white wheat, then it's okay. Pirushin, the Kamal was called, and he said, I want the white wheat for idol worship, right? So, what's the chiddush in that? Lo stam and strichel memer. You don't have to tell me if he asks for white wheat, you can't sell him that because usually that's not used anyway for avodah zarah. And do you have to tell me that if I want white wheat for avodah zarah, I want wheat for avodah zarah. Do you have to tell me that that's also? He said avodah zarah. What's the chiddush in that? All right, below pirushin strichel remember the must be what's the chiddush in that? Ella must be stam de komer chitan. Stam means he wanted wheat. All right, he wanted wheat. You could sell him wheat. Pirushin de komer chibrasa. He wants white wheat. Said white wheat. White wheat indicates that he might be using for zarah. Mechlal. In other words, there in all other items, if he said white wheat, that's usher. But if he said wheat, then it's okay. Mechlal the tarnagol if he was staminamilo, because he said dafkim when it comes to wheat like that. In other words, all other items that are not usually used in avodah zarah. But if he said white one, that's specific. It's mashma that a tarnagol, even if he has tarnagol stam, which Reb Zera said, I want a rooster, you could sell him a white one according to Reb Zera. Mashma the tarnagol over here if he was staminamilo. Why? Because you can't sell because only when it comes to something which is not normally used for avodah zarah, like wheat. Oh, if he said white wheat, you can't sell them. Mashma that a tarnagol, which is normally used for avodah zarah, even if he didn't say white one, that would be usher against Rav Zera. Amri, no. The answer is no. Lo'olam stam dekamar chiti chibrisa. We said stam means white wheat, and pirusha and dekamar lavaros kachavim. And so you said, but you asked, what's necessary to say that? Why is it necessary white wheat is okay to sell them, but white wheat for avodah zarah is not? Upirusha, the chiddush is to tell me that even if he said for avodah zarah, it's okay, then it's usher. It's usher if he said, isn't it obvious? If he says, I want white wheat for avodah zarah, isn't it obvious it's usher? No. I would have a hot minute to say. I would think to say, hi gavra lavos chavim kamoi. He doesn't really want it for avodah zarah. He is very close with. He's a very strong worshiper. He's the deacon of the church. He's very tied up with avodah zarah. The sovereignty figures, just like I love the avodah zarah. Everybody loves avodah zarah. Everybody loves it. There's a tremendous type of avodah zarah. I'll tell him, listen, I need it for avodah zarah. He should give it to me. According to Rashi, he should give it to me at a discount. If in other words, a man who's very close to the church and he's selling something, and a guy wants it for idol worship, I'll give it to him at a discount because he's one of us. He's a regular member of the shul, regular member of the church. He should get it at a discount. So maybe this guy's thinking the reason he said I want white wheat for the avodah zarah is not because he really wants to use it for avodah zarah, simply because he says for avodah zarah to say like Beinenu, we're part of the same tribe. Don't you like avodah zarah too? Maybe give it to me at a discount. That's what I would think he'd be that, and that's why it would be mutter. Kamash B'lan that it's not mutter, it's also because he did say the words avodah zarah. So it's not a kasha on Rav Zera. Maybe Rav Zera's rule can stand that if he asks for stam a rooster, you could sell him a white one. The Mishnah is speaking about where he asked for several roosters, white, black, and red, let's say. And I don't think they have blue, whatever, but he asked for several. Rabbi Yehuda says, if he asked for several and you give him several, it's okay because he didn't just want that one. Whereas if you only give him the white one, then you have to assume maybe he said white one first because he was trying to fool you just to show you that he didn't really care about the color, but he really wanted it. According to Rabbanan, you can't sell him that at all. But even according to Rabbanan, if he said Stama want a rooster, you could sell him a white one, according to Rav Boy Ravashi. Let's say the guy says, Tanago Lovin Katua, Limi. Who's got a white rooster that's missing a finger? Now they don't worship idols with animals that are blemished, that are missing a limb. And he says he wanted one like that. What do you say? Mao. Lim korlo tanago love. Malim, can you sell him a white one? Shulim, a complete one. Because since he said I wanted one that's got a missing finger, he obviously is not going to use it for avodah zarah. Can you sell him a white one that's complete, that's not missing anything, that's a perfect specimen? Since he said I want one that's cut off finger, he doesn't need it for avodah zarah. Odilma, he's trying to fool him. And as he knows that the Jews don't want to sell him white roosters because they're getting his avodah zarah, and the Jew doesn't want to sell him something for avodah zarah. So he says, I want a white one with the finger cut off. Most of them don't have fingers cut off anyway. So he says, since I want one with the finger cut off, it's like telling the Jew, I don't really want it for avodah zarah. You can give me a regular one. Maybe he's trying to fool him. Imtim Salomer, Hayarum, maybe he's just trying to fool him. Hayarum and Uda Kamarim, he's just trying to deceive the Jew. What happens if he says, Tanago Lavan Lemi, Tanago Lavan Lemi? What happens if he says, I want a white one? V'yavle Shachar v'Shakol, or V'yavle Edom v'Shakol. If you give him a black one, he'll take it also. Or he'll give him a red one, he'll take it also. Mao Limko Lavan, can you sell him a white one? He said, I'd like a white one, but if you would give him a red one, he would take it. Excuse me, you could even test him out, or give him a red one and take it. Mir and David say, keep him the Yav Shachar v'Shakol, Edom v'Shakol. Since if you would give him a black or a red one, he would take it. Lavros Chabim Kamboile. Oh, Dilma Yurim Kamarma. He's just trying to fool you. He says, yeah, I'll take anyone. I want a white one. Oh, I'll take anyone. You can give him a white one. Then these questions stand. It's not clear. Rav Meir said, near the end of the Mishnah, the very end of the Mishnah, Rav Meir said, you could even sell him you can't sell him a good palm tree. You can't sell him a good palm tree, dekel tov, v'chatzav v'niklab, or v'niklas is the girsa. You can't sell this over the chum. So what's going on? Rav Meir Aftakal, Amalei Rav Chisda Lavimek, Gemiri, we know the avodas kacham de Avram Avinu, the Mesechet of Avodah Zarah that Avram Avinu learned, right? Not like our Mesechet, which only has a few prakim. The Mesechet of Avram Avinu, Daled Mea Pirkei was 400 prakim. It was so complicated, very complicated. Vanan Chamisha time, we only have 5 prakim. That's what we have here. We have 5 prakim in Avodah Zarah. right? That's the last parak, is the fifth parak, right? And we only have 5 prakim, and we still don't understand everything, right? Ba'anan, chamisha tanan, v'lo yadin, we still don't understand it. Okay, that's what Rav Chisda said to Avimelech. You know, he had 400 prakim, and we only have 5, and we still don't understand it. It's Maikim, we don't know, we don't even understand what we're saying. Umay kasha, what's the kasha? What's so difficult in these 5 prakim that you have such a difficulty with? The Tani, because we learn, I guess, Rav Meir, Omer af dekel tov chatzav v'niklas. Rav Meir said that even a good palm, a chatzav, we'll see, in a niklas, or also a limkol of kechavim, dekel tov, it's mashma, only a good palm tree, hudalam azminan, had dekel bish, but a bad palm tree. Rashi says that there's actually 2 different kinds of shnei minei dekolim heim. Right? I once found out that there's, thousands of species that we have today of decorum, but he says he may be just trying to say that a good one and a bad one, meaning a preferred one and a non-preferred one. It's mashma, a non-preferred one you could sell to him. But time we learn ein mochelem b'mechubel karka. You never sell him anything that's attached to the ground. Rashi says it's an issue of lo schanem lo titlem chania b'karka. Don't let them park in the karka. In other words, you're not allowed to sell a goy. Los chanim doesn't mean necessarily that you can't give your mailman a Christmas gift like we used to do there, because you're going to get your mail for it. You're getting something for it. Los chanim is don't give him something for free. Don't find grace in his eyes. But the drush is don't give him a chaniyah. Don't give him a permanent parking in the ground. This mashma, you can't sell him a tree, any kind of a tree. So we don't understand the Mishnah. Mayor says don't sell him a good tree, a good palm. But a mashma bad when you could, you're not supposed to sell him any trees. Amalei, no, my dekel tov doesn't mean a good palm versus a bad palm. Can't sell, means peiros dekel tov. Don't sell them the fruits, maybe with the stems, as we saw before. Don't sell them the fruits of the dekel tov. That's what it means. Chen rafuna peiros dekel tov. What is chatzav? Kispa. Does that help? Rashi says in Mintorm it's a kind of dates, or he says it's also chatzav is the little bush that Yoshua used as a border for Eretz Yisrael when he gave out the borders of Eretz Yisrael, and he divided among the tribes, and he wanted to make a borderline between all of them. He used that chatzav, which is a very strong, like kind of a bush. So he says chatzav is either kispa. Niklas, what is Niklas? Sounds like Nicholas, right? Ki asa Rav Dimi, Rav Dimi Rav Chama Bar Yosef Kuraiti. Oh, that helps a lot, right? It's Kuraiti. Oh, by Rav Dimi, you think you're helping us? Tana Nicholas. We learned in the Mishnah, you can't sell him. Rav Meir said, don't sell him a Niklas. We know what it is. Ba'atam Kuraiti. And you tell Kuraiti, and we don't know what that is either. My Hanaslan, how have you benefited us? We don't know what that is either. Amalei, Hanoi, I'll tell you how it benefit you. The Chazos Lasim, when you go up to Eretz Yisrael, you should all be making Aliyah. And when you go up to Eretz Yisrael, Amadu, you'll tell them Niklas, they won't know what you're talking about. Amraslu Kuraiti, but if you tell them Kuraiti, they know what that means, and they'll show you what it is. In other words, I don't have a picture to show you. I can't send it to you on the internet. But when you come to Eretz Yisrael and you ask for karaiti, they'll know what that is. What is it exactly? It's a kind of fruit, Rashi says, or it's maybe a kind of a dirt, like a kind of a frankincense, pieces of frankincense, but he prefers to say some kind of a fruit. Says the Mishnah. This is a big, important Mishnah. We have a similar Mishnah in Pesachim. If the minig is to sell small animals like goats and sheep to the goyim, you could sell to them. What's the reason why? That's the minig. But is the minig based on something? We'll see. If the minig is that you don't sell to them, you don't sell. But it goes according to the minig, right? Because they don't do heavy work. What's the concern about saying? We'll see what the concern is about selling them animals, small animals. You never sell them big animals, whether they are small, calves, or Seyachim could be ponies or donkeys, small ones, whatever. You don't sell them those. Shleim and Shmurim, whether they are complete or whether they're broken. What's the reason why we don't sell them? We're going to talk about that in the Gemara. We'll see. What's the reason why you don't sell them animals? We said the reason is you don't sell them big animals that do work. We'll call them work animals, because you might come to lend them a work animal and they'll work with it on Shabbos. And you have an Isser, you're not allowed, your animals are not allowed to work on Shabbos. So you can't sell it to them. When you sell it to them, it's their problem, right? Naftali, remember you sent me that video? When it belongs to them, they could do it. Even if the animal might know that it's Shabbos and not be used to it in that cute little video. But in the truth is, if it belongs to the guy, he could do whatever he wants with it, right? He could do it. So there's a gzeira, you shouldn't sell him big animals because you might come to lend him one. Why would you lend him? He says, like, let me try one out or test it. Rashi says, Nasionis, you might test it out, or you might rent it to him. It's your animal. Your animal, if it's in your possession and he uses it and he takes it and uses it on Shabbos, it's your problem. So therefore we say don't use them at all. Rabbi Yehuda, now that's only for large animals, Bei Magasa. The small ones we talked about at the beginning depends on the minig. We'll see what the reasons for the minig. Rabbi Yehuda Mata B'Shvur. Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to sell him a broken one, because either because you won't come to rent him, or he's not going to borrow a broken one, or if he does, can't do work. So there's no problem with Shabbos. The Ben B'Seir Mata B'Sus. B'Seir says you're allowed to sell him a horse, because even if you lend him a horse doesn't do work. A horse is used for riding. And he held, or the B'Seir held that Chai Nosei Asatzma. We used to say that in the old days before they had Eruvs, that you're allowed to carry a little child to shul on Shabbos because he carries himself. You're not really carrying something. You're not carrying an inanimate object. An animate object like a pet or a child, if he could walk, not necessarily for a baby, but for a child that can walk, he sort of carries himself. So he says, therefore, a horse, even if the person you sell him to uses him on Shabbos, it's not a problem because the animal is not carrying, he's not doing work, because the guy that's riding him is no seyasatzmo, carries himself. Says the Gemara, Lememra di sur lekam and hagahudika. Let's go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. The large animals, we understand, that's going to be an Indian of Shabbos, and are they doing work for you on Shabbos? And again, don't sell it to him. Technically, if you sold it to him, it's not your problem anymore. But it's exeri, you shouldn't sell it to him because the isser of lending him or renting him or letting him test out your animal, that's a problem if he uses it on Shabbos. Okay, but in the first part, we said what? Why shouldn't you, if the minig is to sell a small animal to the goyim, you're allowed to. If the minig is not to, not the name of these. The name of the surah lekem and hagahu the it's only question of the minig. There's no isser. Hey, hechdenog isser noig. If the minig is that they said don't do it, you do it. It's only dependent on a minig. If that you do whatever the minig amakum is. Gemara and Pesachim brings down also lo yishana b'pnei. And there the Gemara and Pesachim talks about are you allowed to? It's interesting on the Daf Yomi Yerushalmi, we're talking about that right now. And I also have to be learning Pesachim Mishnayos with my grandchildren. There it's talking about the minig is to do work. You're not allowed to do work on Erev Pesach in the afternoon, the time you're supposed to bring the carbon. What about in the morning? So it says it depends on the minig amakim. If the minig is that people go to work in the morning, you're allowed to in the morning of Erev Pesach. Morning is not to. But you shouldn't change because of the minig. The same thing we're working on. Tisha B'Av talks about their different minig. So they're talking about based on the minig. But the Gemara says it depends on the minig. For a minig, it's not a question of minig. Don't leave your animal. Don't park your animal in a pundak, in a inn of a goy. They're suspected of bestiality. The animal, they're suspected of bestiality with small animals like goats and sheep. Goyim commit immorality with those animals. So you don't want your animal. And again, what's the problem over here? Lifnei iver. If you know that the guy is suspected of being bestiality, this is what they do, right? You say, how disgusting is that? Well, you see that all the kinds of things is permitted today, right? All the terrible things that we see, all the immorality that we see among the world, that was the thing that they did then too. Huh? It's only right. So here's the problem. Why do you say it's dependent on the minig? If it's a place where, if it's a goyim are suspected of immorality with the animals, so you're not allowed to. They're suspected of doing that. So how do you say it depends on the minig? So the first answer Rav gives is not the final answer. Is mokum sheitiru. When the Mishnah says mokum sheitiru limkor hitu liyachad. That's what he means. In other words, the mokum, where we say the minig is that you're allowed to, if the minig is to sell them, the reason why we let them sell them is because they weren't suspected in that locality of committing bestiality. Mokum she'asru, like where based on the Mishnah, the words mokum she'asru, based on the minig, the Mishnah later on, goes where they assered it, the asur limko, then you can't sell it either. In other words, it's not simply a minhag stam. Is the minig as you sell minig? The minig really is dependent on this isser. If it's a place where where it's minig. Rav says, take a look at Rashi, right where the lines get wide. The yichud depends on the minig. Therefore, they're allowed to. In other words, it's not stam. Is the minig is to sell them, sell them. Minig is not to sell them, not sell them. No, the minig depends on what's going on. Where you say you're allowed to sell them, they say you're allowed to miyachatu because they're not suspected in that locality of committing immorality with animals. In the place where Taka said, it's because they're suspected over there. That's what Rav says. So he says it's not stam a minig. The minig depends on suspicion of the goyim. For Rabbi Lazar Omer, at the top of Tesvav, even in a place where they said you cannot be miyachet because you're suspected, mutar lamkur, you're allowed to sell it. In other words, allowed to sell it. Why? If there's suspected bestiality, aren't you over in Lifnei Iver? Rashi, the first Rashi after the Mishnah in the Gemara, their command of their echad. That's one of the Zayin mitzvahs b'nei Noach, that they should stay within their species and they shouldn't commit adultery of any sort. So Blazer says no, even when you can't leave your animal with them because they might commit bestiality. Mutter limkor, you're allowed to sell it to them. So why are you allowed to sell it to them? Isn't it l'fneiver? Aren't you causing him to commit bestiality? No, he only commits bestiality with your animals, not with his own. My time, he has rachmanis. He doesn't want to lose his animal. He doesn't want the animal to become sterile. Apparently, bestiality somehow had an effect, or they thought it had an effect on sterility. And he didn't want to make his animal sterile. He wanted his animal to be able to reproduce. So he wouldn't commit bestiality with his animal, only with your animal. So therefore, you're allowed to sell it to him, because once you sell it to him, he's not going to commit bestiality with him. That's his point. So Bled says, even where it's also liyachid, where you can't, even where it's also, in other words, the two things are totally non-interdependent. Minig is minig, if the minig is a sell, you sell. Minig is not sell. Where it's also, the isser is leaving your animal with him. Even a place where it's also for you to leave your animal with the guy, don't leave your animal. Let's say you wanted to, in those days, they didn't have parking garages. They had barns where you kept your animal in his barn. Don't keep your animal's barn because he may commit immorality with the animal. But if it's zoning, if you sell to him, he's not going to do it. Even Rav, who gave the first answer and said the minig is really dependent on the Isser, no. Rav Harabe, he also retracted. Amrav Tachlif, Amrav Shila Baravim, Mishmei the Rav. He's worried about his own animal. So therefore, you could sell him an animal. The question is it a minig? Whatever the minig was, the minig is you sell to them, sell to them. Are you worried about bestiality? No, he's not going to make bestiality with his own animal, only with your animal. Your animal, you should never give it to him because he doesn't care about your animal. He doesn't care, and he might commit bestiality with him. All right, we're at the two dots here, and we'll pick it up here tomorrow. Mitzvah Hashem, continue on with the Hezbollah of the Mishnah about Behema Gasa. That's our discussion tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.
Now, how to be experts in Avodah Zarah.
Yeah, that's right.